Hi guys, welcome to the video. When you first start out thinking about doing foam cutting, or you've done some foam cutting already, you'll soon realise that to make these types of things, these foam wings, and even if you're going to do a load of little ribs like this, that the software can be quite challenging. And there isn't a lot of it around as compared to CNC routers and that. You soon find it, you spend more time on the software. I always say to people when they're into this side of things, the actual building of the machine isn't that difficult, because once you've got it built, it's there. Where you spend 90% of your time afterwards is in the software, getting the design how you want. So in this video, I'm going to show you how to use DevWing Foam. What we'll do is we'll actually make a flying wing, but this slightly different flying wing this time, because I've got tutorials on flying wings that I've done with the older software. And I'll put a link into that if you want to have a look at that one as well. So I've been flying radio controlled planes for about 20 years now, and I've got all sorts. You might have seen some of my videos before with the sort of things I've been flying, you know, from airliners to little Depron models, and through the years, what I've found is that I get more enjoyment from the models that I've actually built myself from a kit or done from scratch, like my Hawker Hurricane, which that was completely done from scratch in foam, and then a few of the other models as well. My VC-10 airliner, that was another one that was a big project as well. Quite challenging projects, but very rewarding when you see the things fly. When you buy a kit and you put it together and you fly it, you do get some enjoyment from it. Personally, I don't think you get the same sort of buzz from it as, you know, something you've built yourself. So in this tutorial about DevWing Foam, what you're going to need, you're going to need a CNC foam cutter, and this using the hotwire here to cut through the foam. Now, if you haven't got one, I've got a whole video series on this, how you can build one right from the start. And it's not as expensive as you might think. You can probably build this foam cutter here for about $200 US or about £160 UK. And if you've got some parts already, probably even cheaper. And you don't have to do it exactly like this. I mean, I've got plans for these where there's a small charge on the website for the plans. But a lot of guys have put their own interpretation on, and some of them are using a lot of 3D printed parts now. So there's a builder's gallery on the website you can have a look, and there's some really interesting takes on the design there. So why would you use DevWing Foam, which isn't a free program, when there are free options? Well, I've used them all. I've used there's one called Wing Cutter in G code, I think. Have I got that right? I'll put the right name up for it anyway. Then there's JediCut. Both of those are free programs, and I've got some tutorials on them as well, so I'll drop you the link for them. They're great programs for what they do, but you'll probably find they're a little bit limiting. With JediCut, if you can do more complex things with it, but it's just a lot of work to do with JediCut. Although it does fine for fairly simple wings, to do anything more complex, then DevWing Foam is the best piece of software in my opinion. I've been using DevCad software for quite a while, who make the DevWing Foam, and then there's DevFuzz Foam as well to do fuselages. So I'll put you a link to my T45 Goshawk that I made the fuselage for that, and I also did that with the Hawker Hurricane as well. So they're good pieces of software as well, but they're not free, and you can see why they're not free, because there's a hell of a lot of work into them. I mean, I put the free ones on my YouTube channel because not everyone has the money to pay for it, and you know, if you do want to do something like this, then the free ones are good enough to get you going. And once you see what they can do, you might think, well, yeah, perhaps it is worth buying the paid versions. So if you enjoy building, I highly recommend DevWing Foam. So in this video, part one, we'll be covering the design, which is probably going to be the longest video. Then the next video, we'll go into creating cutting projects, which generates our G code for us. And then I'll probably make a few of the parts. Then part three, we'll make the rest of the parts and build the flying wing. And in part four, we'll take her down the flying field and see if she flies. Any tutorial on software is going to take a long time, and I'll take you through and show you all the options, but I'm not going to go into every single little detail, because even on the software itself you'll see little references to you know, rarely used settings. But hopefully by looking at the software you can decide whether it's for you or not. So what shall we build? Well, I wanted something to show the capabilities of DevWing Foam. A few years ago I built a flying wing with the older software. So this was the wing I built, and as you can see, it came out quite well. I was quite pleased, you know, with the visual aspect of it. The only problem was it didn't fly very well. I'll just scroll down and show you some of the... Now, I originally tried it on my first flying wing that I built, and you can see I put the FPV gear on the wing and I almost crashed it. It really upset the flying of the wing, you know, just by sticking the bits on him. And you can see there's a little square there with the camera. Yeah, so what I did then, I built a bigger wing, and this was the build of, and it came out quite well actually. And you see the carbon rods there, and it going together. And using my favourite covering method, brown paper as usual. But the only problem was I don't think I got the design quite right, and I don't think the wings are far enough back. And although you can't see it on any of these pictures, I had to put a load of lead weight up the front to get it balanced. I got the battery as far forward as I could, and then I still had to have, you know, a massive piece of lead weight, and it never did fly very well. I even tried a Hobby King gyro on it. So after the third flight, I smashed it up completely. Luckily, the FPV gear survived. I thought this time I'd try and have another go at doing this, but with a slightly different model with a better design. So this is what I've designed up, and the wingspan is about 950 millimeters. I think that's about 38, 39 inches, something like that. And it's got this center section here, and it's using two different aerofoils. So it's in three parts. So we've got the outer wing sections, we've got the middle section here, and then we've got this section here. Now this section, the white section here, that's because we're transitioning from one aerofoil to another. So in the middle we're using a Clark Y aerofoil, and that's to give us a bit more room on the inside to get batteries and flight controllers and things in there. And then it goes on to a flying wing. It's the MH60. I think the name of it. It's done by a German guy, a Dr. Martin Herpler, I think it is. I got that pronounced right. So what we have to do in DevWing Foam, we use the Clark Y on the inside, and then the MH60 on the outside. And if we have a look at the front, so you can see that there. So we've got the MH60 there, and then we're transitioning up to the Clark Y. So if you use the MH60 all the way through, there probably won't be enough room to get any gear in it. So this is the actual plan for it. So as you can see, all the dimensions there, we'll be using these dimensions in DevWing Foam to design the wing. So the other way you can do it, if you want to build a particular aircraft, and one I've been thinking of doing for a little while, I don't know why it just appeals to me, is the Grumman A6 Intruder. I'll get a picture of that up. So this is the Intruder, and what we'll do within DevWing Foam, I'll show you how to use an image to get the wing dimensions. So hopefully that's going to work out quite well, and we can start to model it up in DevWing Foam. So let's get started with DevWing Foam. So what I'll do first of all, I'll just show you what will happen is if you start DevWing Foam without a license. So it's starting up and it's checking for a license first of all, and then what you'll see happen is that it comes up here, and you can use almost everything within DevWing Foam. But the only thing you won't be able to do is to generate the G code, and there's a few exports as well. I think on some of these exports here you won't be able to do that. So all you do is press continue, and you can follow along with this video tutorial even if you haven't purchased a license. And as I said, everything will work apart from when we get to the creating a cutting project. So we go to create the cutting project. So it gives you a good chance to see what DevWing Foam's like before you decide to purchase it. And it does cost a bit, but personally I think it's well worth it when you consider how many models you can make. So all my licenses are on that USB key there. So when you get a new license, as you put the license in, it saves them onto this USB key. I didn't used to have that when I first started, and after having 1 or 2 computer failures, it's better to have one here. The thing about that then is if you've got DevWing Foam on another computer, so you've got a big desktop and a laptop, you can, so long as you plug that in, DevWing Foam will work on either. You can't run them simultaneously. You can only run them on one at a time. So we'll plug it in now. All right, there we go. So she's in now. You can see the it's recognised it there. So this is the latest version of DevWing Foam 2. So there we go. I'll just go back here. So this version of DevWing Foam 2 was only just released. So I'm recording this in January 2020. So it was released in December 2019. So it's very new, and it's there's some nice features from the original version, DevWing Foam. I think that it's really good, which I'm quite impressed with. So let's have a look at this flying wing, and we'll go into the 3D preview. So this has changed from the last version, and you can see what we've got there. So this is what we're going to be modelling up. So I've already done it once just to make sure everything works. So what we'll do is we'll go through it again. So this is and the other thing you can do as well, which I quite like, you can show the full wing. So if you click on the full wing, so we've now got the full wing there. And then you can take parts of it off as well. So so that's our middle section there. And then you can take various parts off as well. You can see the spars going through the trailing edge. So I think that's a real big improvement from DevWing Foam. Stefano's done a real good job on this. Right, so we'll come out of that. A couple of other things that have changed as well is we've also got the ability now to import a project from Profili. Profili was the original one I first started with, and the majority of my wings have been built with that. The FPV wing I showed you earlier, that was all done with Profili, and it was good for for its day. But there's a lot of improvements within when we went to DevWing Foam, and now we've gone to DevWing Foam 2. There's some really good improvements as well. One of the big improvements as well to DevWing Foam 2 is we've now got the abilities to add a folder. So you can see I've put a couple in here. I've got flying wing in there. So I've already started designing an FPV racing ring. I don't know whether you guys have seen this. It's it's what they call the spec wings. It's for FRP racing. I think it's quite big in the States. I don't know if it's taken off in the UK yet. But they're all standard spec wings that have to be built to a certain dimension. So I'm going to have a go at building one of them, just for the fun of it. So I've created a folder for YouTube here to keep me YouTube. So what we'll do is we'll start off first of all with a new project. So even though I've got this project here, and what we'll be doing as well, we'll be referring to the dimensions. I'll be referring to this dimension. So let's go back. So create a new project. And when you first open up DevWing Foam, you'll see these lines going across on the various windows. So as you might have guessed, red means it's mandatory. So we have to put some settings in this page. We can't go any further until we've got some settings in there. And we've also got this thing called expert mode. So you can have that on or off. If it's off, basically you have to go through like a wizard mode and go through each part. But the expert mode is quite good as well, because once you've done the design, you might think, oh, I just need to alter the aerofoil or a spar, and you can just jump straight to that section. So it won't work at the moment because we've got nothing in. And the other thing I like about it, you've got the save option as well. So you can, at any time, you can just click save. Say somebody knocks at the door or phone goes, you can just click save and know everything's okay. And you can jump to the last bit, but we'll see that as we go further in. So first thing we need to do is put a name. So we'll give it FPV wing. I'll just put YT demo here. We can put a description in if we want, and then we get down to the settings. Now, if for any reason you wanted to work in inches rather than millimeters, let me just come away. So on the initial splash screen, we go into the settings, units of measure, and we can switch from inches to millimeters there. So if you've done something in inches and then you switch back to millimeters, it just converts all the figures for you. And the other option here, we've got language. So basically, we've just got English and Italian because the software comes from Italy. And then we've got some other settings there, which I've never done anything with really. And then we can put a description in as well. Now, the other thing that's quite good as well, if you're wondering what all these boxes are, you just grab the question mark and then go into the box there. Describe the distance between the root and the tip sides of the half wing. So what that means is we go to, so what it's wanting is the distance between the tip there and the root there. So for this particular wing, so we've got 365, 40 and 70, so that's 475 I think. So what we do then, we put 475. This distance between the half wing is, you only really need this if you're dealing with some tapered spars in the design. So we don't really need that. There is a help on it. So the help's quite good as well. So if we bring the help up, and if we go down, distance between the half wings is the distance between the root side or the left side of the right wing. If they are joined, set 00 or fuselage, this value is applied for shaped spars if they travel the fuselage. So we're not going to need that. As you can see, the help's context sensitive, so wherever you are, bring the helps up, it brings up the relevant help. So the root chord on this is 270, I think. Let's just double check. Yeah, 270. Yeah. Put 270 in there. Number of panels. We can alter this later if we want, but we've actually got 3 panels on this. So the panels are like the wing sections. The wingtip, we can apply a wingtip, but this is if you've got a CNC router and you want to cut the wingtip out of bolster. So I may cover this in a later video, but for this video, to keep it a reasonable length, we're not going to cover that. So we just take that off. And then we've got the project file format. So we can have compatible with previous versions or fast saving format. So I'm going to stick with the new fast saving format. So this is new in DevWing Foam 2. Then we've got go to customize reuse project settings. You'll see this a few times in the program. And as I said earlier, there's a lot of things in here which I've never touched in here, even on the old version. I think it's basically the same on the old version. And I've never touched any of these. I find with DevWing Foam, most of the default settings are pretty good. They've done a good job on that. So if we do next. Now what I'll do is once we get a little bit further into this wing, I'll come out of it and I'll show you how we use the image option with the Grumman A6. But we'll just skip this for the moment. So now we've got our 3 panels here. So on this screen, what we need to do now is go in and set the correct dimensions. But basically all it's done is just split it up evenly in 3 parts. And as you can see, it doesn't really look much like our wing. So if we have a look at our wing, it doesn't look much like our wing at the moment, but that's quite easy to sort out. So, and what's good about this as well, if you go into each of the dialog boxes, so if we go into panel A, go to dialog box there, it shows us where we are, and we can actually adjust this graphically if we want to. So if we just click on it, we can pull it back. So if you had an image underneath, you could line it up with your image. So that's brought that back to there. And I think on our drawing, that distance is 70, so we can put it in manual as well. So I'll put 70 in there. The sweep back, you can see the sweep back there. And we've got no sweep back. I'm just going to type this in manually there. And then the root chord there, that's going to be the same because this bit is straight, so we'll put 270 in there. So then we've got our first straight section. Then this next section is very similar, so we'll go on to B. So this section is 40 millimeters. The sweep back is 0 again. Well, we need to apply that, don't we? Yeah. Sweep back is 0. And the chord length is 270 again. So looking at our diagram. So what we've done, we've just done these two parts here, the two middles. So what we're going to do now is come on to this section here. So we'll move on to part C. Now the distance of that, you don't seem to be able to go any further than the end of it. So what we'll do there, we'll put it in manually. 365. There we go. So that's our. And then the sweep back, we can do as two ways. We can use the sweep angle wizard there, so we can put the angle in there if we want to. Or we can use the dimensions there. So from our drawing, the sweep back is 270 again. It's actually the same as the root. So we'll put in 270 there. Apply that. Yeah, now it's starting to lock our wing. And the chord length on there, I think is 140, is it? Yeah, 140. So we go in there, 140. Oh, come out of that. So there we are. Now the other thing that's quite good with DevWing Foam as well, you can actually measure as well. So if you wanted to know what the distance was, the total distance, so we could go on to, and we can zoom in a bit as well. If we do, just click. If we hold the shift down, it puts it into orthographic mode. And come across. Right, there's no snapping on this. That's the only. I think we're about there. Yeah, so it's in 474. Yeah, so if I was a bit more accurate. And the other thing we can do here as well, we can split the panels into more panels, split into two panels if we wanted to. So say you just wanted an aileron on. So if we're on panel C, and we just tell it to split into two, we could have two panels then. And say you wanted the aileron just on this outer section. When we come to do the ailerons, you could put that in there. So I'm just going to take that out. I think we can do an undo there. And the other thing we can do as well, if we want to, if we've got quite a complex wing, we can go into advanced wing planform editing, and we have these nodes up here. So what we can do is if we select the panel, click on the node, and then we can put it there. So we've got a funny shaped wing. Let's come down a bit. Yeah, so we could shape our wing like that if we wanted to. So this works better if you've got an image underneath. So if we had an image, that would be showing through and we could line it up with that. But we don't need it on this one, so I'm going to undo that. And I'm going to go, no, so okay, cancel takes out the whole thing. Right, so the other thing that's quite good here, it's giving us a total length here as well. So when we measured it, we've got a total length, and we've got the total wing area as well, which might be quite handy for working things out. So that's all we really need on this screen. Through the IT demo. I'm going to leave the well, let's put it at 500, half wing length 500. Let's put the root chord about 300, something like that. We'll do 2 panels on this. We don't need the wingtip here. So what we need to do now is set an image. So we'll get the image. As you notice here, there's various image formats you can use. You can even bring a DXF file in, a CAD format. But the only thing is it will bring it in as an image, so you won't be able to snap to any points or anything. So we've got lots of different options there for bringing files in. And we can even bring a DevCad file in as well. Right, so we'll open that. So what we need to do is we need to crop our image now, because we don't need the whole image. So if we go to crop, we'll go somewhere around there, down to there. And then what we need to rotate it as well, because we need the right wing to do this. So as you can see here, we must now calibrate and actually crop the picture before pressing OK. So you must consider the right half wing only. So we're just going to be working on this side here. Now we've got 2 options here. This first one here, if you've worked with some images before, like this, these 3-view images, you sometimes find they're not quite straight, but this one looks quite good. But what you can do, if you click on there, click now the trailing edge rib, now click the leading edge rib, and then what it will do is it will then, if the image was not straight, it would then line the image up for us. So that's quite handy if you've got an image that hasn't, it isn't vertical there. So what we need to do now is we need to do this option here, and this is so it says down here, click the root of the trailing edge. So you can zoom in a bit. Round about there, and click the rightmost point of the right half panel. So I'm going to go about there somewhere. And that's our dimensions there. So if we go OK, so you can see it's just put these in by default. So what we need to do now is go in and into our program and adjust them like we did before. And this is where so you can see it's not giving us much on the root. So let's just alter the root first of all. Now the root chord. So this is where the measuring comes in quite handy. So let's go there. Hold shift down, go up. That's saying about 360. So let's try 370 there. Oh, wrong one. 370. Apply. That's looking better. And then what we need to do now, we need to adjust this width. So this is where we can use the graphical size, which is, if we pull that over, line it up somewhere around about there. So that's looking pretty good there. And then on, I don't think this allows us to go, it won't allow us to go any further for some reason. I don't know whether that's a bug, but so let's measure that distance. So from there, hold the shift down, keep it straight, and about there. So what we've got there, 411. Let's try 410 for that. That's not looking too bad. Right, now on this panel A, we can see that this is this position here is not quite where we want it. So let's go to the sweep back, pull that down a bit. That's looking better. Right, the other thing we can do now, we can use the sweep angle wizard to get the angle of this. So let's just go near there. Put that along there. That will give us an angle of 26.76. Right, so what we'll do then is on panel B, we'll go sweep angle wizard. If we put 26.76, apply that. There we go. That's just about brought it right. It's not looking too bad there. So we can go exit now. Now we need to get this tip cord the right distance. So I think what we'll do is we'll use a measure again. Let's we'll click on there, and we'll come down to the shift down. About there by the looks of it. It looks like we've got a distance of 109, so let's go for 110 on the tip cord. And there we go. That's so that's how we get the dimensions if we're using an image. So that looks fairly good like that. So that's quite a good way of getting your dimensions. So if you've got an image of a particular aircraft you're trying to model, yeah, you can get all the dimensions like that. So if you haven't got a plan to work from, then that's a good option. And as you can see, it works fairly well. So we'll go on to the next. So if we wanted to split our wing into more than quite a few panels, so say this was like a Spitfire wing, which was more curved. With a hot wire cutter, you can only cut straight. So what we'd need to do is then make lots of little panels, then join them together. And there's a wizard there to create the split. So you can go add split space by distance or evenly spaced. Yeah, so there's quite a few options there. But again, we don't need it for this section. So we'll go on to the next one. What I'll do is I'll just do a save as well. So we now got that saved just in case. So when we come onto the aerofoil sections, what we need as a minimum, we need a root aerofoil and a tip aerofoil. So we need the root aerofoil up here and the tip aerofoil down here on the last panel section. Because our wing design is a little bit different, we're going to have to put them in individually. So if we select the root aerofoil and we're on We're on panel A there, so we're going to be selecting the root aerofoil there. And DevWing Foam has got loads of aerofoils in, so I take the filter off there. You can see by how long it's taking to load up, there's quite a few aerofoils there. It's running a bit slow as well because I'm running OBS to record this video as well. And we've also got the option to import. So if you wanted a particular airfoil that wasn't included, you can import it in various formats. That format's probably the most common. There's quite a few websites where you can get these from. So what we're going to need for this one is a Clark Y for the center section. So I do see on filter, and I'll select the Clark Y. So you get a preview of it, and you can actually go in and look at it in a bit more detail and look at all the stats for it. And the other thing you can do is you can filter by advanced parameters as well. So if you were looking for a particular, if you go into advanced, like particular thickness or camber, and yeah, you can go into that. I don't use that very often, that one. So we've selected Clark Y. So then the tip aerofoil, now the tip is referring to the tip of part A. So go select. OK for that. Oh, I always forget this. You have to apply the panel setting. Apply the panel settings. And then what we want then, on B, the root aerofoil is a Clark Y because it's following on from the, but the tip aerofoil, that's where we need to select MH60. This setting interpolated. If we just were using the same aerofoil, we could put the root in and the tip, and it would work all the ones out for us, so we wouldn't have to go in and specify each one. So we're going to interpolated there. And the one we're going to want there is the MH60. We'll use the MH60. Oh, got to apply it again, yeah. And then we need to apply it on the tip as well because it will want the tip. And then you select MH60 again. And we'll apply it this time so I don't forget. So we've now got our aerofoil, and we can do a 3D preview now. So there we go. So we can see how our design is going to work. So we've got our MH60 there and our Clark Y there. So that's going to give us this transition to the flying wing aerofoil, and this should give us the space inside. So we're going to be putting spars and lightning holes in here as well as we go on. Let's just show the full wing. Yeah, there we go. Right, some other things we need to do here as well. On my flying wings, I always put washout on the tip. So that's at this. So let's go to the tip aerofoil there. So that's our tip aerofoil. And these flying wing aerofoils, I've got something in them called reflex. I don't know, you can just see it at the very last bit. It tips up very slightly. So on a flying wing, it will tend to nose over unless we've got some reflex in it. It's because we've got no tail to counterbalance the wing. And you can do the reflex by using the Ailerons as well, by putting a little bit of up in the Ailerons, but we're going to do it in the aerofoil here. I also put some washout in as well on my wings. They seem to work quite well on that. So I've just ticked the box there so you can actually see it, and I'm going to put -2 in here. And if I apply that, you can see the actual wing that goes up at the back end to give us more washout. So the washout is designed to stop swept-back wings stalling as you get slower. So another setting we've got here is dihedral. So if you want some dihedral on your wing, so let's just put something a little bit ridiculous. We'll put 10 degrees in, and we'll apply that on the, and then if we have a 3D preview, you can see it's moved it up quite a bit anyway. We do a 3D preview now. So you can see now that we've got quite a lot of dihedral there, which I'm not sure whether that fly very well like that, but it just shows you what you can. So you can either do your dihedral by angle or tip elevation. But what we'll do is we'll take that out because we don't need it on this design. And the other thing I like to do as well, if you notice down at the, let's go back to the root. If you notice down at the tip of the aerofoil, it goes very thin there. And what tends to happen with a foam cutter, as it gets down here, it can tend to eat away the very end of the foam. And in the past, what I've done is made the aerofoil actually a little bit longer to allow for that. But we've got a good setting on here now. And we can set the trailing edge thickness. So define it for each panel. And if we go on to panel A, and then we've now got this setting here. So I think I'm going to put, what I've worked it out to is in the design is 6mm there. So if we apply that, and you see at the back there, that's now come up. So that's going to allow us to get a mount in for the motor as well. So on B, it starts at 6 because it follows on. What I'm going to do there is put that to, let's go 5 there. Apply that. And then on panel C, we start at 5. I'm going to go down to 3, so it should taper out towards the end. So if we look at our panels there, so you can see we've got a little bit there. Looks quite a lot, but this is only 140mm long. So, and if we do a 3D preview now, if we go in there, and we can see it looks a little bit thicker there, and it goes quite hard to see on this, but it's going out thinner there. That's about all we need on it. Some of these other settings here, lofting and that, are quite advanced settings, so I'll not go into them in this. So on the next section, we've got sheeting. Quite a few of the glider guys like to cover their wings in some sheeting, and they usually tend to vacuum seal them as well. So what you can do is, if we look at say we wanted some sheeting on the aerofoil here, so by default it's got 2mm in. So if we just add the new sheeting, so we can put that on there. One of the things you can do as well, which is quite handy, if you set this to 0, you set that to 0 and go to customize exported speed, you can actually print these out. So if it was some film, I'm not sure why it's done that bit there. It's probably because it's curved there. So that would allow us to cut out some covering. Yeah, so that would be our sheeting on there. So that's quite a handy option, but we're not going to use it on this. I'll just go close to that. So I'm going to remove all the sheeting. Yeah. So that's quite a good option as well if you want to put some sheeting on there. If we go to the next section. So this is where we can put leading edges on the wings, and we've got various options there. So we can put a rounded section, some stock, V-notch and a strip. Not actually use it on this wing, leading edge, but I'm going to put a little trailing edge on the back here to help with the getting the motor mounted. So we'll ignore this section, and an option we've got, I'll show it on the next one. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to have a trailing edge on panel A. So we go there, panel A tip, and then I'm going to use a strip here, and I think I'm going to put it in about 50 millimeters, because some of this is going to be cut out as well. And I think I'm going to probably do it, I'll leave it at 2 mil, 2 mil will be alright. And if we add trailing edge, and if we look at the, now you can see at the moment that's going up with this line here. So this blue line is called the mean line, and this red line is called the chord line. So if we go to placement, we can change that on the chord line. And if we apply, see that's come down now. We've also got the option to do it freehand as well. If we do it free, then we've got these settings we can do here if we want. But I'll leave it on the mean line because that makes it nice and straight there. And if we do a 3D preview, we can see now that we've got our trailing edge in here. So I'm probably going to use this to mount the motor. So I'm going to probably cut some of this foam out and use this bit of ply here as a support for mounting the brushless motor on the back. The other thing we've got here is set cutting strategy, which you'll see on quite a few of the. And by default, it says automatically set a good cutting strategy. Most of the time that works all right, but what I have found sometimes is you need to use one of these options here. But at the moment, we'll leave it as is at the moment, but I'll show you on one of the, when we do the lightning holes, where we need to alter something on there. So the next section is we're adding spars. Now you've got various options for spars using the wizard, but I don't think any of them are suitable for what we're doing here. So what you can do is just add a generic element. So I think what we'll do to start with is just put a spar on the outer section. And then call this outer spar. And I'm going to use circle, and I've just bought some 4mm rod to use for this. We'll use a 4mm rod. And this is where we want to place the actual spar. So for this actual wing here, putting in the maximum thickness is probably going to be the best place. But as we go further into it, we'll actually be using the other options we've got here, like distance from the trailing edge to leading edge, highest point, lowest point. So what we'll do is we'll accept that. And what we do is update picture preview. You see now we've got a spar there. So if we look at our, you can see where it's put our spar, which is on this dotted red line here. Now what I don't want this open section here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this insertion off. And what will happen is that we'll just have a small cut coming in there, and then it will go around and do that for us. So I may regret that later if I'm struggling to get the rod through there. And then the other options we've got here, spar rotation angle. For a round spar, it doesn't matter, but say if you were using a rectangular spar, so rectangular shaped, and you wanted it at a certain angle, then you could come in here and do that. So the other options that we've got here, we've also got something called a phantom spar, and that's just for actually putting, so if we just click on the help there, This is a spar set as phantom used to make slots or holes in the forms, but not rendered as a usual spar. So that's more for looking in the the preview side of things. So it will just show it as a hole rather than an actual spar in there. So that's okay there. And I think for this first spar, that's all we need. We've got a first spar. Then what we're going to need now is some spars going across here. So if we add a new generic element, now this time we're going to go from panel A root to panel B tip. And the maximum thickness is going to be different now because we've got a slightly different aerofoil here. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to measure this so that they join up as near as possible. So let's just zoom in and then click on here. Get to sort of near enough the middle. So that distance is 75 millimeters. So what we're going to do now, we're going to use distance from the leading edge, 75 millimeters. Straight path along the wing panel. Update picture preview. Oh, we've got the wrong size there, haven't we? Circle. 4 mil. It looks like it might be slightly, so let's just bring it up a little bit. Let's try 73. 53. Too much, must be 74 then. Yeah, that'll do there. So what we can do is, when we're actually building it, we can actually join them together as well. So that's the front. And then what we're going to do now is we're going to put a spar that goes across all of them. Now what we find is we'll get an error here because it won't like going across all of these. And now we're going to do a rear spar. So we're going to add another one. Call this rear spar. And we're going to leave it on this here, panel A to C. And we'll change it back to circle, 4 millimeter. And this time we're going to do it from the trailing edge, distance of 70 millimeters. And if we, you see that's gone right out to there. So what we do to fix that, use a sweep angle and change that to 0. And we get a warning here. And the reason for that is because it's gone outside there. And we won't actually be able to cut this spot. We could cut it like that, but it means it's going to cut through this one. And I don't actually want it to go all the way. I probably only want it to come a little way into the section there. So what we can do is just go to B tip, update picture preview. And then when we've actually made the model, what I'll do then is manually, once we've got this lined up, we'll then just manually cut some holes in there to just get this in here a little bit. But that should give us a fairly strong wing, that. Yeah, so that's on the main line there. I think what we might do there, sorry, that's on the chord line there. I think what we might do is that, yeah. Now what you can see now, it's going to try and cut it from the top. So this is where setting our cutting strategy. So if we go to set cutting strategy, cut the component from the lower side after cutting the surface. So if we select that, we've got the insertion, update picture preview. So hopefully when we go on to the next the next video, when we show the cutting, it will show us coming through there. Hopefully it will come up the bottom, but we'll check that anyway. So that's all their spars done. So we'll go on to the next section, and this is for ailerons. So you've got various options there for different types of ailerons. So what I'm going to use here is the V shape. You do this using the wizard. Right, so we add elements using the selecting wizard. So we select V shape, and then we're only going to want the aileron on panel C. So we go C, panel C root to panel C tip. So we're only going to get it on there, and then it's put some settings in here. So if we just accept what we've got there, so you can see we're going to get an aileron. I tend, on my flying wings, I tend to like them a bit wider at the tip than the root. Yeah, so I think 40 and 25, yeah. Root, no, that's 25. And that's 40. There are some guidelines for when you're putting ailerons in, and generally what you need to do is make your ailerons probably about 12 to 15% of the actual wing area. So let's do OK to that. That's looking a bit better now. And the other thing we've got, if we look at so we can see I've got our aileron in there. We can alter the angle as well. 45 looks a bit much to me, so I'm going to change that to 30. So click on there, bring that down a bit. What we've got there, 27 wasn't bad, was it? We'll put 30 in. Oh, came out of it, didn't mean to do that. Go back to the tip there. The other thing you've got to is the angle is referred to as the main line. So what it will do it perpendicular to the main line or perpendicular to the chord line. So there isn't a lot of difference there. So if I change it to chord line, see it's just straightened up a bit there. So that's our aileron done. So as you can see, it's quite a comprehensive program, DevWing Foam, and it's got a lot of options in it, but you don't need to use every single option. And as you get more experience in it, you'll start to look at some of the other options. So what we're going to do now is we'll go on to lightning holes. So this section here is apply optional lightning holes. So if we just turn on look at the side at the moment, we're looking at our middle section here. So this is going to be where we have some lightning holes to get our battery and flight gear. And what we can do is we can just let it apply some automatic holes. And all we're going to do on here at the moment is we're going to apply it to block A, which is our middle section. So if we do apply to the range, and you can see there by default it's put them in. That's probably a little bit thin there, so I think I'm going to change it to a thickness there. That's looking a bit better there. And we've just got the two holes here, which so our battery go here. This section here gives us a bit of strength, and there's an option there to take that off, but we probably, because we've got a spar there, it won't take it off anyway. But what you can do is, if you've got no spar there, rather than having this as one big hole, you can apply that, and it will keep a section in there to keep it a bit stronger. So that's applied an automatic lightning hole. So say you weren't quite happy with where they were, or you didn't want automatic, you can go into manual editing, and you can start to alter the sizes of these, or you can add other holes as well. So say you wanted to add a circle. Let's say we wanted a circle right down there at the back for some reason. And then we can alter the size there. So let's just do 6 mil. 6 mil. And so that's made us a small hole there. And we've got various options there. We can add rectangles, ellipses, so we can add all sorts there. But we don't actually need that one there. So the other thing we've got here now is set the cutting strategy for the holes. So we can do it on the selected holes, or set the cutting strategy of the holes of the selected block, or we'll do it all. I'm just going to do it on. We've only got holes on that block. So, and what I'm going to do here, I'm going to want this to. I think it will come in from the top, the wire. So I'm going to select on that option. So what that's going to do then is going to cut from the top there. We're going to want some access into here, so cutting it from the top is going to work out quite well. So let's have a 3D preview of that. So you can see now we've got a hole in there. So, and I have measured this out, and a 3000 3S lipo should fit in there okay, going across, and then we can get flight control and receiver and that in there as well. Yeah, so that's looking pretty good. I think that's about all we need. There's a lot of setting cutting strategy here, but when we get on to the next video, we'll go into that more, and we can see where it's actually going to be cut, and we might have to come and alter that. So go on to the next section. So this is really if you've got a CNC router and you want to cut some wooden ribs to place in between the foam. I'm not going to cover that on here because I'm only going to cover using a foam cutter. But what you can do is you can get it to cut. So you could get it to cut this out with a CNC router if you wanted to, but we're not going to cut. And these here nose checking templates, that's to help with building as well. I've never used these, so I don't need to use them much. And one option we've got now on DevWing Foam is we can actually compute the weight and the size of the wing. So if we go into that there, so the report here is giving us the wing area, the full weight, and then what we can actually do is we can actually tell it. So we've not got any sheeting. Panel A, panel B, panel C. We're not using, so using the trailing edge. So that trailing edge, medium balsa. Let's put light plywood. Ply. And then the spars. I think we have got carbon in here as well. And I've been looking. Carbon fibre. Ply. Carbon fibre. So this is new in DevWing Foam 2. So we're not using the leisure, we're not using any sheeting. So what it's saying to us that our wing should come out at 63 grams. So when we actually build it, we'll check that. So this is just the half wing. that'd be quite interesting to see if it actually does come out at that way. And if we do a 3D preview now, and we'll put the full wing on, so we can see we've got our spars. So if we take the upper surface off, do it on all of them. So this is how our wing's gonna look. I'll probably actually make this center section as one piece rather than doing it in two halves. Just make it a bit easier to cut rather than do it, but it won't make any difference to the cutting anyway, because this section's straight anyway. So we've got our ailerons there. So ailerons, we're probably going to have to put some carbon in the back here to strengthen them up. And I'm probably just going to make this in normal white styrofoam. Oh, I think black. I think I've got some black styrofoam. I'm finding I'm getting a few issues with using XPS foam. It causes me a little bit of problem, so I've decided just to do everything now in white styrofoam. And then the wing, I'll probably cover in my favourite method is brown paper, which makes them really strong. And it'll just be one solid wing. I'm not going to try and make it in separate parts so the wings come off. So it's not going to be a massive wing. So that's the design finished of our project. So that's the end of the design phase of DevWing Foam. What did you think? Personally, I think it's the best software for making foam wings. And there's some great models you can buy, but they'll be quite expensive. And sometimes you can't always find the one you want. So with the companion program, DevFuzz Foam, you can almost make any airplane you can think of. And I really enjoy researching the models, and it adds a whole new element to the hobby as far as I'm concerned. I've tried to keep the video as short as possible so it's not too overwhelming. So if you think there's something I've left out, just let me know in the comments and I'll include it in part 2 if it's going to fit in okay. So in the next video, we'll create the foam cutting project, and that's what generates our G code. And what I'll also do is discuss some of the controllers we can use. So there's 4 I'm going to look at. There's 2 paid and 2 free options, and I've used them all. So I'll tell you from personal experience, it's not just research I've done online. So guys, I hope this video has been useful. Keep a lookout for part 2, or better still, subscribe if you haven't already. Thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you in part 2.